I now have undeniable proof that we are sharing this planet with a non-human race. This isn't clickbait. I'm going to show you how you can see them as well. I urge everyone to go out and get one of these. If you missed my last video, I went down to the BBC and everyone there showed up the same except the two guards outside, proving they are not human. Today I went down to Buckingham Palace in London. Again, same thing. As I'm walking down, I'm filming, everything's showing normal. I filmed the guards outside of the palace. Exactly the same thing. No heat whatsoever. You can see right behind them, there is heat coming from the buildings, it's showing orange. But even when they're walking, how do you explain that? Again, I don't know whether they're reptilian, vampires, I don't know. I don't claim to know what they are. But what I would recommend is that everyone buys one of these things. And as I said, this is not clickbait. I've not amended the pictures. I've not adjusted the video in any way. This is exactly what I filmed today at Buckingham Palace. And anyone can replicate this themselves. So if you can, go out and buy one of these things and see it for yourself.
They worshipped a deity called Moloch or Molech. It was a deity that was an aspect of Nimrod, who keeps coming up everywhere, of course. And what they used to do is sacrifice children to Moloch or Molech. They put them through the fire. And in the Old Testament, you see prophets condemning the people for putting their children through the fire to Moloch or Molech. When I've talked to contacts, therapists and what have you around the world who work with satanically abused people, what those people tell them is that, again, when they're sacrificing children, the deity in the modern world today that they use to sacrifice them to is Moloch or Molech. Same seamless stream. So the question comes in relation to this: how do they symbolize Moloch or Molech, this deity to which they sacrifice children? They do it, symbolize him as an owl.
These are people that worship Moloch and sacrifice children. I can't sugarcoat that. Okay, how is it possible that Walt Disney Corporation has anything to do with biomedical and scientific British publication? And here's how that interlinks. It's just crazy. After World War II, Charles Darwin's grandson and Fleming, the guy who discovered penicillin, they went to the British government and they said, hey, we think you need to improve biomedical and scientific publishing house. And so they said, no problem. They combined these two publishing houses. And guess who they put in as the editor? This is where we start getting into the Disney realm. Okay. They hired as the editor of this Robert Maxwell. Now, Robert Maxwell has nothing to do with medical education, right? Or scientific publication. But it turns out that the owner of the largest scientific publishing house in England, all during the war and before and after, it was the intelligence services, owned their publishing. So now they hire Robert Maxwell, who was a proven and admitted a spy for the British during World War II, but he was also a Mossad agent because he's buried on the Mount of Olives. Who's Robert Maxwell? He's Ghislaine Maxwell's dad. Okay. Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, the Disney Corporation, it turns out, his son is named Robert Maxwell Iger because he was a best buddy of Robert Maxwell. And then you have the whole issue of Ghislaine Maxwell with Jeffrey Epstein and the whole pedophile problem. It turns out the Disney Corporation has cruise ships that would go and do diving things off St. James or the neighboring island. It's all big one incestuous thing, but one of the things that flows through everything, it shows the pedophile connection to all of this. So who they are people that have big enough money for universal censorship, big enough money to come after, doctors all over the world, take over the system to come after us all over the world. And they're connected heavily by funding from pedophilia. And the even more evil thing that they don't talk about is body parts. Is the number one money in the world is selling body parts.
Mike Carter exposes creatures, hybrids, cloned athletes, and mind control.
Some of them are, I'd say, creatures. They're hybrid. That that does exist, where their DNA is taken, again, for cloning facilities, like hair shaved, teeth pulled out, DNA taken, things like that. So let's say they break their hand quickly. There's something that can be used with machines. So med beds. We all know about med beds, right? So there's a definition of med beds going on backwards right now. If somebody hurts themselves, they can get well like that in sports because it's a DNA thing. They take their DNA, they use that for cloning facilities, they re-bring them back, and they're back to playing. Even though they may be a shitty player, they need their face. So let's say some of them have one leg. Some of them you'll see them dribbling together. It'll look like somebody carried the basketball over to the hoop. Like, you know, those 3-pointers that don't even look like 3-pointers? And you're like, how the hell did... And then all the men are like, yeah! Like, but in reality, it's a green screen. Somebody takes that ball and moves it to the hoop and then checks the TV, and what's the ratings? Did we go up? Cool. Let's do that again. There's somebody who remotes your commercials as you watch them. You know, those commercials that pop up on the regular TV, those 3 commercials. There's somebody who sits in the background and actually makes those commercials pop up on your TV screen. That's their job. I don't know what that's called, but that's their job. Your whole world is a stage. How I know that is because I've been up there with them. I had to sleep with one of the players. I didn't even sleep with one of them. I was assaulted by one of the players that had a prosthetic cheek. And when he took it off, like the I don't even know what was going on inside of his mouth. I could smell it. It was gross. Again, the research is endless. And I'm not... Why? Who would want to sit here and make this shit? How can you make this shit? An example because it's a basic example. It's the most basic example that you can get on contracts like this, on blueprints like this, on the analogies that we're about to use. I'm going to use the military as an example. When you go into the military, there's clearances that they get, right? Let's say the Navy. Who knows someone in the Navy that has an E4 clearance? E7 clearance. Okay. When you get to an E4 or an E7, by the time you are at an E4, you are completely broken down and you do have alters. By E7, your mind is not your own at all. By E7, your mind is a robot. Does that make sense? You are now, yes sir, no ma'am. You will stand in the cold even if that is abuse. I know at one point that the military does break people down to say like, I need you to be a soldier. You know, there's some people who go into the military and their family puts them into the military. Like, you need discipline. You need to learn new things. You need to be able to fend for yourself, right? But by E4 in the Navy, they have passed that point of dissociative identity disorder. And what that means, if you do not know what DID is, it means that they have broken their mind, or split their mind, in a way that they now can, how can I say this? So let's say that soldier that you know. So when they leave, sometimes they're a really goofy person, right? Sometimes out of control, and you think that that's what's going to help them in the military, right? When they come back, that goofy person that you know is angry, right? Have you ever seen that? Or that goofy person that you know, you can't get them to crack or smile for nothing. However, sometimes they'll act childlike if you bring something up to them, and maybe it'll just one day that they're like, oh, and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought that was going to break your face to smile again, right? I didn't know we were still there. Like, I missed you. Have you ever had a situation with a kid who has been in foster care or through some type of trauma response? Sometimes they can be from 5 years old. Some people really don't like it to speak on the teenagers because I feel like the teenagers are harder to get to because they've been broken down so much. By that time, your mind is already on another level because of what age you're at. But when you're broken down with trauma, it's easier to get to you. right? So has anybody ever had this situation, even with your biological child, where your child may come home and is going through something and you can look at them and say, that's not my child? Anybody ever went through that? You can look at them and say, I know for a fact that's not my kid. There's a look in their eyes that is vacant. There's a look in their eyes that's angry or almost evil. And you're like, I didn't raise that. I know I may have messed up because of what parent gets a memo book, right? But I didn't raise that. Do you know what I'm saying? And that saying comes out of your mouth. That's not my kid. Has anybody ever went through that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some that don't understand, their trauma reverts back to that time. So if you were raped around that time of year, if you were beat as a kid around that time of year, if you were in the military and that's when your programming was completely stopped around that time of the year, that time of the year will always be held. You'll notice it.
The body remembers. You might not consciously say, you know what, so died, I'm going to be sad, probably. It's usually unconscious, but you still are having the same reactions. Your body's still responding the same. Your body's going through all that again.
So, dealing with kids that, there's some kids that they like attention, right?
Yeah, I'm stunned that you want to continue talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Epstein
Okay,
instead
I'm
of a
reclaiming
Border
my
Patrol
time. I'm
agent
asking
murdered.
you not a trick question, a simple
Stunned.
question. Okay, so what is clear is we have evidence.
Do you know
that
who Chris Malin is?
We have evidence that 3 senior officials within the Trump administration have ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And what I
does
can
ties
conclude,
mean?
I can conclude
What does
from what
ties
you are
mean?
saying that you have not talked to them.
What does ties
So,
mean?
I
Can you
think
define
Americans would be shocked to learn that you are not interested in talking with these officials who have ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
What does
across
ties
the
mean?
world,
Can you define that?
across the world,
Can you
prominent
define
men
ties?
who've been
Time
exposed
belongs to the
in the files have resigned their jobs in disgrace, and that's a good first start. And that same
Disgrace is
standard,
not saying the
this
word Chris
same
Malin.
standard should apply here. And Americans want accountability.
Who is Chris Malin?
Was the president
he?
aware? Please stop talking. It is not your time to ask
was he?
questions. It is not your time. I'm reclaiming my time, Mr. Chair.
One second.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Vermont.
Was the president aware of Secretary Lutnick's ties to Epstein when he chose him to lead the Department of Commerce? Was he aware?
Chris Malin was a Border Patrol agent.
Okay, so I'm going to
Shocked
conclude
that
that
she
the president,
never
in fact,
mentioned
did
him
know about his
in
ties
her
because he
district.
was the next door neighbor.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
You're
this
from
is
a tiny,
pathetic.
beautiful
This is
state.
pathetic, Mr.
Committee will
Chair.
be in order.
I am not asking trick questions here.
You
The
got your
American
5
people
minutes.
have a right to know the answers to this. These are senior officials in the Trump administration. This is not a game, Secretary.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies, I couldn't tell.
I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once when he was
Weak
here.
sauce.
And
Weak sauce.
also, I want the record to reflect that, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
from the
is
river
Jewish.
Epstein
I just
wanna be
as
clear.
anti-Semitic.
Do you want to go there, Attorney
time
General?
belongs
Or
to
do
the
you
gen-
want to go there? Are
Time
you
belongs to the
serious?
gentleman
Talking
from
about
South
anti-Semitism
Carolina.
to a woman who
Lady-
lost her grandfather in the
I reclaim
Holocaust?
my time. I
Really?
reclaim my time.
Really?
She joins us now watching the ceremony. I was just saying there, Imogen, this very enjoyable spectacle with dancers, and I presume some people that have taken part in the project as well, shows just how immensely proud the Swiss are of this tunnel for so many reasons.
And so we're going to talk about something we're looking at. Okay, so go ahead, Doc. Just start playing.
Yes, they are zombies.
This is like an army of zombies, and these represent the workers that were in the tunnel.
Yes, the workers in the tunnel. And as you mentioned previously, before we started airing this, the 9 miners who died. They
This is the most cryptic and symbolic halftime performance yet.
What the hell?
It's all in the name. When Bad Bunny comes out, he's wearing all white like a messiah. Follow the White Rabbit, Alice in Wonderland symbolism, and the Matrix.
White Rabbit.
We have these people dancing around Bad Bunny here, forming a star, which the star is a 6-pointed star of David. At the top of the shack, there's also a square in the center, which represents the black cube, or the black cube of Saturn, which the cube is also within the Star of David, also known as Metatron's cube. The center of any star is also a hidden point, such as the hidden level of Kabbalah or the hidden tree of knowledge. So the bunny falls through the hidden point of the Star of David, which is the center, right through the black cube, falls down the earth, the fallen angels down the rabbit hole.
Things happen at these events that are important. Bad Bunny has been showing us symbolism of all-seeing eyes, basically, at every performance, ritual, award show that he's done since he came out in 2017. And you know, I've been covering every single one of them because it's blatant, right? And he shows you the third eye pineal gland, but specifically, he was in a Rolling Stone article and they took photos of his tattoos, and he only started getting the tattoos around 2022. He had no tattoos. Then all of a sudden he's got a ton of tattoos in 2023. They take these photos and he's got on his stomach a handful of really interesting tattoos. And the most interesting is the alchemical rebus. And this is the idea of the perfected hermaphroditic entity. And this is in the occult understanding of the history of the world. They think that we started out as the perfected hermaphrodite, meaning we were sort of a unisex being. It gets weird. It goes back to Adam Karmam from the creation story in Kabbalah. They think that we can go back to that. Like, that's the plan. This is one of the pursuits of alchemy, right? Which is like the black arts. This goes back to ancient Egypt and the Western Hermeticism that goes back to Hermes and Thoth. And like, it gets really, you could do an entire hour show on each of these things I'm mentioning. The ideas of alchemy seem to be what we find in symbolism in almost all these events. And the reason why you see all the symbols and why they're doing all this crazy stuff, the reason they do it is for a couple reasons. One is to garner energy from the viewer, and another is to complete what they call the great work.
I think it's really telling when we're talking about the Epstein files that we remember that there's multiple interviews of Jeffrey Epstein talking about Jesus, except for he can't really say the name. Have you noticed that? He can't really say the name. He only ever refers to him as like a carpenter or the carpenter or like that, which, by the way, is explicitly demonic because demons can't really say the name. They have to call him the carpenter, and they do that, one, to try and mock him, to make it seem like, oh, he was just a carpenter type thing. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein literally did that in an interview where he was talking about philosophers, and the interviewer mentioned Jesus, and he went, I thought he was a carpenter. I'm not interested in talking about that. Yeah, probably because you worship Baal, dude. I can't believe that. I'm still trying to struggle to comprehend that we have, like, documented proof of child sacrifice. of the elites. That's insane. I can't believe I made fun of conspiracy theorists.
Debí tirar más fotos de cuando te tuve. Debí darte más besos y abrazos las veces que pude. Ey, ojalá que la...
Wow, Joseph Stalin. He was Illuminati. He was a member of the Grand Orient Lodge. Leon Trotsky, Grand Orient Lodge. Kissinger is a member committee of 300. J. Edgar Hoover, 33. Cecil John Rhodes, Aleister Crowley. Walt Disney was a 33-degree Freemason. Olive Palm, Al Gore, Tony Blair, Joseph Mengele. That's interesting. That's the mass murderer of the Nazis. He was Illuminati. Robert McNamara. You name it, they're all there. Billy Graham. Oops, sorry, let's move on. Colonel John Glenn, Buzz Aldrin. Everyone who's ever been up in space has to be a Freemason of the highest degrees. Edgar Mitchell, all the way through, Francis Bacon, Lord David Owen, all the negotiators, Richard Halbrook. I'm just running through some of them. Alan Greensprang, Peter Wallenberger, Queen Elizabeth is the queen of the Bilderbergers. Prince Philip, Queen Beatrix, she's the committee of 300. Prince Bernard of the Netherlands, committee of 300. And so we go on and on and on and on. Ted Kennedy, Rockefeller, David Rockefeller, Deng Hui, Baron von Rothschild. Hillary Clinton is 6 grand dame. She's a very high Freemason. Albert Pike, of course, you know, Bertrand Russell, Otto von Habsburg, Weishaupt, all the way back. Here is Edgar Hoover. President Dwight D. Eisenhower there honors him with the 33 Grand Cross at the Special.
Plato referred to Saturn as Helios, the sun god. Satanism is Saturnism. Satanists worship the goat. The god himself is a symbol of Saturn because this planet is enthroned in Capricorn, whose emblem is a goat. And you see them on Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Baroness Philippine de Rothschild. This is called the magic square of Saturn, 666. This is the sigil of Saturn, the most obvious symbol of Freemasonry. Balmoral, the Scottish home of the royal family, the sigil of Saturn. This is an ancient symbol of Saturn. They then took it and put it on their fiefdom of Israel, the symbol of the Soviet Union, the symbol of Saturn, the hammer and the sickle. This is a permanent hexagon in the North Pole of Saturn. He's also the 6-pointed star, and he's also the cube. The Kaaba is a symbol of Saturn. The black cube that Jewish people put on their third eye as part of their ritual is Saturn. So all these symbols are all representations of the frequency of Saturn. That's the matrix that's playing us.